Train by day, Kyle Wigginton podcast by night, all day.
Rick Sinclair.
That's me.
With the Bopper. So my buddy Renee, he hooked us up and he was telling me kind of about what you have here. Mm-hmm. And I know that the issue is a very big issue. So how did you kind of get involved with the school shootings and was that your main focus or is it other things? Because I know this can be used for other things besides that.
No, it started out strictly as a school shooting device. Mm-hmm. I'm an old guy. I have a grandson. And
Yeah.
my daughter called me from Ohio and said, would you buy a bulletproof backpack for my grandson?
Get the freak out of here.
Yeah. And I went, well, doesn't make much sense, you know. And, well, the kids are getting them because they do drills and they hide behind their backpacks. And for the last 45 years, actually this month, I've been in an industrial marketplace solving problems for heavy industry. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that's a problem I can solve.
Yeah.
Thought it'd be simple. Thought I'll whip something out in the next couple of weeks. 3 years later, and I'm not going to tell you how much money we spent. We came up with the Bopper. It started out, entirely different, and it just began to take shape. What
was the initial concept?
Yeah. Well, the initial concept was to drown a guy in light reflective beads so that he could, and then have a strobe light. But the beads wouldn't stay in the air long enough and really wouldn't be that effective.
Okay.
And we were looking, even from the beginning, I mean, I started talking to teachers and I started talking to principals and whatnot, saying, well, what is good? What's not good? And the main thing was you had to walk a very thin line between, it has to be aggressive enough to work, but it can't be so aggressive that you're going to hurt the kids or you're going to even scare the kids.
Yeah, you're going to scar the kids for life.
Yeah. And so, the old, I don't know if you've seen the old Westerns where they had a fist fight and a guy grabbed a handful of dirt and he threw it in the other guy's face. Mm-hmm. And I was watching one of those. I said, well, that might work. It doesn't have to be something crazy, just something that would get in his face and blind him for a minute,
Yeah, so that's kind of how it was told to me, was that this delivers a dart that has particulate inside of it, and it's supposed to clog your airways and your.
Well, exactly. I'll tell you about that in a minute, but it started out basically with a paper cup full of dirt that we'd throw at a tree. Yeah. You go, oh, that kind of looked good. And they said, dirt's not going to do it. Let's look at something better. And I happened to be in one of my clients is a coal burning power plant up in Alexandria. And I was up there and we had to do some repair work in their ash handling system. And if you've ever been cleaning out your barbecue pit or a fireplace, the ash is just, it's just nasty. It gets on you. You can't get it off. Well, think about coal ash in tonnage rather than and they break it down as they take the ash out of the air before it goes up to stacks. It goes through several different stages and it separates the heavier stuff from the lighter stuff, et cetera. Mm-hmm. So I was able to get 5 different kinds of ash and play with them and mixtures. And we finally came up with a composite that of mostly fly ash. And
what is fly ash? Is that just like the name of the coal ash?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And when you burn coal, when you're at a power plant, what flies up the stack is fly ash.
Okay.
There's heavier ash that falls to the bottom and they flush it out with water. But and we actually have some of that in here too, just a little bit. But the other ingredient that we put in, 3M makes they call it microbubbles. They're little tiny glass beads that are actually hollow and have a vacuum inside of them. Mm. They're super light and originally they were made for makeup. So that ladies' makeup would be lighter on their face. And they have no weight at all. You open the can and they start just floating out of the can.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And
so what's the point of those?
Well, I put a percentage, about 20-25% of that in there. And the original idea was when we launch the dart. We don't shoot it. We try to use words that don't scare the kids.
Right.
That's why we call it a Bopper. because when I was young and I misbehaved,
You get bopped.
my mother bopped me in the back of the head, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, so no, we put it in there so that when this dart, we call a dart, hits, it's a cardboard tube and it spins and it cracks open. And that spinning action throws that dust up into the bad guy's face. And like you said, it goes in his eyes, it goes in his nose. He can't breathe. But just in case they miss and they hit next to him, that dust is still going to fly around. But the lighter particles stay in the air 4 or 5 seconds. And they are light reflective, like we started out in the beginning. So it makes a cloud around a guy. So even if it doesn't get in his eyes, or say he has safety glasses on or something, he still has to see through this cloud for 4 or 5 seconds. And if you notice, the Bopper has 2 barrels. So if you distract him for 4 or 5 seconds, the teacher has a chance to clear the nervousness or step closer or move a little bit and get a second shot off. And through that dust, because the dust only hangs around him. If you're more than 4 feet away from him, you're still in the clear. So the kids are way away. They don't get any dust on them. They don't have to breathe it or anything. The impact, these darts, they weigh almost 11 ounces, which is almost a pound. They come out of this they come out of this Bopper at 100 feet per second. So it's like somebody hitting you with a baseball bat.
Oh, yeah.
So the impact is the first thing. And then if the impact doesn't do it, this starburst of dust and composite kind of finishes them off. And so it is aggressive. And it's...
What's an aggressive situation? So, I mean, you kind of need something that's a bit aggressive.
Well, the schools right now have a program for, shooter preparedness. And they have 3 steps that they take. They do these drills. And the first step is to run. If the bad guy is in the other building and you can get clear and get out, the kids run like they're in a fire drill. But the second step is to hide. That means if the alarm goes off, the door locks, the curtains come down, the kids get behind the desk, and the teacher tells them, be quiet. We don't want the shooter to know that we're even in here, And then the third step is to fight. Well, if he breaks through that door, even if it's locked, a 9mm will shoot a lock off. And if he comes in, and that's where the problem lies. They tell him to fight, but they fight by throwing books at him.
Well, they're little kids too. Like, what are they gonna? How much are they actually gonna fight?
Right. Well, and even the teachers, they don't have anything to fight with.
Right.
They tell him, well, okay, throw a book at him or throw your laptop or the guy's got an AR-15s.
Yeah.
So, and really these things take 3 to 5 minutes and it's over.
Yeah.
But in 3 and 5 minutes, a lot of people get hurt,
Right. So I mean, these are bad situations anyway. It sucks that we actually have a nation where we have to be in these situations. But yeah, we do need something like this. And would you go into schools and actually train the teachers on how to use them? Because I know a lot of my old teachers that I had, like they wouldn't want anything to do with this.
You'd think so, but this wasn't going on when you were in school.
It's a different time. Yeah, you're right.
I'll tell you. And the reason I say that is I've interviewed a lot of teachers, but what's happened is, and you got to first think about the odds. I mean, we don't know this, but this happens twice a week in the United States.
Get out of here.
Yeah. There were 80 shootings this last year, and figuring schools are only in session 180 days.
80 school shootings last year? And where there were 80 shootings where somebody got shot in the building. That's insane. I didn't know it was that big of an issue.
And well, unless it's a big one like they had in Atlanta recently,
right?
It's on local news, but it doesn't hit the national news. And a lot of times it's just, well, okay, one teacher got shot, 2 kids got wounded.
That's still crazy.
And and it is. And so the teachers are aware of this,
right?
but it's not that publicized. But there are 128,000 schools in the United States. So the odds of somebody coming into your school are pretty slim.
Right.
But for the teacher who got shot, those odds, didn't matter.
You were saying something that really like resonated with me was that this is really, because the odds are very slim. So it's more of a way to keep the kids calm.
Well, that's has turned into a bigger issue than I started out with. I started out with, this is to protect the kids for that. If they can knock a guy down or a bad guy down for 4 or 5 minutes, then that help is on the way. Mm-hmm. And if they got 2 shots, they could maybe keep him down for 10 or 15 minutes. But the trouble is they're running drills.
Yeah.
They run them once a month. And in fact, the Surgeon General this past July came out and made a statement that this is now a health issue, a mental health issue. Mm-hmm. And most people took that to mean the shooters were mentally ill. What he was talking about were the students being traumatized. But so he followed it up and he said over 50% of all school children were scared to attend school this year because of the drills. And just 3 weeks ago, President Biden signed a executive order to make those drills more progressive, to do more of them. And he emphasized, but by the way, make them more age appropriate and not as traumatic. Well, how do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you make it less traumatic? Look, kids, we're going to hide so you don't get shot. That issue is there. You can't downplay it. You can't change it. Well, what this does, this is in every classroom, the Bopper. Mm-hmm. It's not down in the administrative office or whatever. And by the way, we have a special stand we've built. It's got a quick release lock that only the teacher knows how to, has a little special key that she can pop it real quick and it falls right in her hands. Excuse me, I keep saying she, but teacher. So it's in the classroom all the time. Well, now when they do the drills, if they decide to run during the drill, the teacher still grabs this. So she's running down the hallway with a weapon in her hand. Mm. You don't know who's going to turn the corner or come down a staircase or whatever. But mostly they hide. So the alarm goes off. The kids know, get out of your desk, get on the floor, or get in the back of the room or whatever, get away from the door. All the doors now have windows so they can look through the window, but they pull a curtain down, lock the door. But the teacher, instead of turning to the kids and saying, be quiet, the teacher grabs this during a drill. Yeah. And he stands between the door and the children and turns around and looks at them and said, don't worry, kids, the bad guy comes in here, I'm going to bop him. The kids feel a lot better.
Absolutely.
They feel safer. In fact, even to make it a little more friendly, we're adding glitter to the mix. Yeah. So we're gonna glitter bomb them.
No, I think it's a great idea, man. Yeah. Especially with the way you're putting it right now, where it's it's gonna make the kids feel more at ease. That's the biggest thing, because you want kids to be at school. You want them to actually want to be there to learn.
Yeah. And they're turning schools into prisons. You've heard that statement how many times? And they're not stopping. I mean, I don't want to quote or tell you who I quote, because I don't want to tell you who I've talked to yet. They haven't given me permission.
Right.
But I talked to one of the toughest principals in the city. And this is way back when I was developing this and getting ideas. And when I mentioned school shooting, his eyes welded up and tears were coming out. Just this past weekend, I was in front of Lowe's and there was a woman trying to get a big bucket up in her car. She couldn't pick it up. So I offered to help her, And I said, here, let me help you do that. And I saw she had a school sticker on the car. And I said, are you associated with that school? And she goes, I'm head of that school. I said, well, maybe you could do a favor for me. And I handed her a card. And when I mentioned school shootings, her knees buckled and she grabbed the car. Yeah. What's happened is these people, the educators, have just buried this issue emotionally because they don't have an answer. Right. If a shooter gets past the barricades, They get past the metal detectors. They get into the buildings, which again is happening twice a week. The teachers and the kids are now target practice. And the big problem is every time the discussion comes up, it goes straight to, should we give teachers a gun? And of course, teachers don't want a gun. Few do, but most of them, they don't want to be shooting. The worst thing is half these kids went to school there. Half the shooters were former students or current students. And they have a gun pointed at a kid they know. They're not going to shoot at him, or if they do, they're going to hesitate, and that's going to be too late. So nobody's discussed, well, wait a minute, if we can't give them a gun, what's the alternative? And this is why I did this, because after 3 years, or during that 3 years, I have yet to see an alternative. Yeah,
that's pretty much what I hear too. I hear either a gun or put locks on the doors. That's the two things I've heard. And even the guest I had on before you came in, I was telling him you were coming on and what you had, and he's like, "Why don't you just give them guns?" That was his like first go-to. But he's also a guy from Texas. So
there you go.
Yeah. That's immediately where they go.
Well, I know a bunch of old teachers that I would have shot somebody, and I stop them and I say, think about it. That door opens up, and an AK-47 comes through the door, held by somebody you know.
Especially if you've never shot a gun in your life, too. I know some of the teachers that I had when I was in high school, like they probably never touched a gun.
Right.
So, I mean, asking them to actually pull a gun out and shoot somebody would be a lot, but giving them an alternative such as this would be perfect.
Well, they know it's not lethal.
Right.
We actually went to the regional director of the ATF, and I said, this thing hits with 100 joules of energy. There are any engineers out there? I said, I can't tell you that if it hit him in the side of the head from close up that, it wouldn't kill somebody. And he goes, oops.
I mean, seriously, in that situation, yeah, I'm down for it.
Yeah. But the chances of that, again, are very slim, And he said, he looked at it. He said, this qualifies to be less lethal is the name and non-destructive. And he was so enthusiastic, he gave me his personal cell phone number. Now, this is the regional director of the ATF. He said, this is my personal cell phone number. Anybody has any trouble with him, you tell him, call me. And it's important to know that we've been vetted by local sheriff's department here in town, New Orleans. We've been vetted by the Louisiana State Troopers Association, has a school safety division. They came down from Baton Rouge just to see it.
So they sought you out. You didn't actually ask them.
No, I called them.
Okay.
I called them. And again, it was before I had, this is the final prototype. For the last 3 years, we've had it's a grenade launcher.
Oh, wow.
The same company makes this, because I don't have a factory to make these.
Right.
They're a military contractor. They make grenade launchers, and they make net launchers for wildlife and fisheries. And this is built to those standards. This is all anodized aluminum.
No, I've had it in my hand. It feels great.
Yeah. And so they loaned me a grenade launcher, which had one single barrel and a lot shorter, but it was good to develop the darts with.
Yeah.
And once we got the darts developed, then we could go back to them and say, okay, by the way, everybody I talk to wants 2 barrels. And they go, ooh. And so we had to start. That's something they'd never done.
The double tap, man. You got to have the double tap.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what this is for.
Yeah. That change when you shoot the first one,
that's the switch
down to tell you it's on the second one. And to get it back to the first one, you got to flip it back up again.
Yeah.
But,
and how many shots do you get per canister?
Per tank?
Yeah.
Oh, I can shoot almost 20 times with that.
Okay.
Yeah. This holds 4,500 PSI air, which is an awful lot, but we only shoot with about 500. So it's, that's why all the gauges and whatnot are on it. So, but it is it's less lethal. Teachers don't want to kill anybody. And the interesting thing too, is I found out by accident, when you're inventing, you always find things out by accident, that on the back of these, I'm holding a dart. I don't know. This is weighted.
Okay.
With that heavy ash I talked about. So when it comes out of the gun, it does that and it flies like that.
Okay.
So instead of having a footprint only this big around, it has a footprint that big. So teachers worry about missing. they're not gonna miss.
Right.
And again, they're only shooting from 14 feet away. 15
When if they
feet
hit
away.
something in the vicinity, it's going to cause it to explode anyway. Correct?
Anyway, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's chances are they're not going to miss.
You get hit with that though, you're going to feel it.
You're going to know it. Yeah. And everybody looks at this and thinks, oh, it's just a cardboard tube you buy off the shelf. I actually had to go to Canada to find a manufacturer to make the tube right.
Really?
If most of them were too strong and they wouldn't break open.
Yeah.
And if they bought the weaker ones, they'd break open in air.
Mm.
But also, we had it cut with the double helix. It's 2 layers. This one's this way, and the other one's reversed.
Mm.
That makes it spin real violently and really throws that dust up.
Do you have videos out there where you?
I have a website.
Okay.
That Renee put together for us.
Well, I wonder if Renee would allow me to put the video on this so that we could see.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I guarantee you.
Yeah. Shoots. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's my video anyway.
Yeah.
I paid.
Right.
But no, it's on the internet. It's It's www.Bopper Defense.
Okay.
Just like it sounds, BOPPER defense.info. And there's a video on there. And shoot, I left my phone in the car. I could have showed it to you.
No, it's okay. I'll actually pull it off and I'll put it on the video.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I'll get with Renee and I'll see if I can get it from him.
Yeah.
And then I'll include it into my edit for this so people can actually see it in action.
And we actually have an interview with teachers.
Mm.
Now we got 3 teachers and a board member of one of the school boards, and they didn't know what we were talking about. I had them sit down and watch the video, and then we filmed their interview. Said, what do you think about that? And they were the same way. They said, and they said the same verbiage that almost any teacher I talked to says, until now, we haven't had a chance. Now we have a chance.
Yeah.
And what they meant was a chance to survive, but they just stopped at chance,
right.
And every teacher I've showed it to, I even went to an elementary school the other day. And there was a woman who was a teacher there who had been through a shooting. I didn't even know there was one in New Orleans, but in 2003, one of the John McDonough schools had a shooting.
Okay.
And she said, her initial reaction was, oh man, if shooter comes in, I'm just running. And then she stopped and said, no, when it happened, you take care of the kids. You make sure they were out. Even though the shooter was still in the school, this woman turned around and went back into the school to help the kids that had been shot. And she looked at this and said, yeah, I would have dearly loved to have had this at the time.
It's a brave woman right there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm from Arkansas. And I was around whenever the West Side school shooting. You ever heard of that?
Sure.
Jonesboro?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like literally down the road from where I was.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of like the first, our first intro to that kind of stuff. But then also my mother and my sister are teachers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So they've been around the entire time. Mother just retired. My sister's still in. And one of my best friends is also a teacher. So I think they would actually love these things. My best friend is a gun enthusiast. So if it came to something like this, he would be, one of the first ones to grab it and, go help out, I'm sure.
Well, like you said earlier, we've had a lot of interest in people wanting them for home protection.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because we don't want a gun in the house.
Yeah.
But, having a golf club in the, doesn't really help a lot, And, of course, these days, finally, they've started arresting teachers if the kids get a gun. I mean, arresting the parents if the kids shoot people.
Mm-hmm.
So they think, well, I really don't want a gun in the house now, but I'd keep one of these around.
Well, what other types of businesses have you have reached out to you about this? Because this would be great for every kind of protection, right?
I've had bar owners.
Yeah. Would this be legal in a bar?
Yeah,
because it's a non-lethal form.
It's non-lethal.
Yeah, and
so they can. Yeah, there's a lot of bars that keep a gun behind the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And they know the liabilities and they feel like they have to.
Right.
Well, they put a couple of these behind the bar.
Yeah.
And it reduces that. And again, even in a bar, it's accurate up to about 50 feet.
I think that's all you need, really.
It'll still open almost at 90 feet. Yeah. But yeah, at 50 feet, that's a long way inside a building.
Here, just think about this. Yeah. I mean, that's all you need.
Yeah. So, but we've had churches, even, well, you wouldn't have known about it, but there was a shooting at wasn't Sherman. It was across the street from the Sherman-Williams store out in Veterans years ago. Disgruntled employee came in, shot up the place. And, so I've had a couple of people say, yeah, I'd put one up in my office, but we're really trying to, we can only make so many right now. I can make about 100 a week, which sounds like a lot, but most schools are going to need 20 or 25 of these things. And we really want to get them into the schools first.
Well, that doesn't even seem like enough either. 2020.
Well, we can step it up. If we start getting orders, for more than that, we could double it immediately. But the company that makes these has other obligations, but they still can. They can ramp up. And then we talked about if for some reason it's just exploded, they have subcontractors they can use to start getting them out. Mm-hmm. So, but still, it's if delivery time is 2 months, it's still 2 months, but that's better than not having it at all coming in.
Yeah,
because the next big thing is what we're maybe reaching for down the road is we got big signs we'll put in front of the schools. This school is protected by.
I love it.
And if the shooters start recognizing what this is, they see one of those signs, they think, well, I'm not going in there. They got a bunch of crazy teachers that are going to start lobbing these darts at me.
Well, a lot of times that's really all you need, right?
Right. And so we're hoping, there's trends right now. These kids who are going crazy. What do I want to do to make my mark? Oh, I'm going to go shoot up a school. It's easy. I can sneak in there and whatnot. Well, we take that away from them and make schools a less friendly target. Mm-hmm. Is our goal. The biggest problem we have now is just getting the word out. Yeah. That's, this is wonderful that, somebody might hear me out there. Yeah. And, and I actually, when I picked this up, they're making these in North Carolina. I picked it up 4 weeks ago and I took it to Washington and I met with the School Safety Division of Homeland Security. So I went right to the top.
Yeah.
And they looked at me and they said, oh, this is great. We like the idea. Go back to New Orleans and see what you can do with us and let us know.
I want you to do it locally first.
Well, here's an organization, a governmental organization to me that should have said, if you like it, let's help you get the word out. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they just formed an information collection group of 25 presidents of different organizations, like the National Organization of Independent Schools, the National Organization of Secondary Principals, and these people represent thousands of schools. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, can we just get something, a note?
Just get in front of them. Yeah.
Just go look. Or tell your members, just go. You don't have to endorse it. Just tell them to go look at the website. And they went, well, go back to New Orleans and see what you can do.
Why wouldn't they?
I asked myself that question.
So
as I was leaving, I just kind of shook my head because the woman I was talking to, she goes, oh, I really love it. So, well, great. Let's help me get the word out, because I'm a good designer. I'm not a big national marketing guy. I don't know what to do with it. And
in my mind, if there's a problem, I want to hear every possible solution that I can.
And that was the whole purpose of this group.
Right.
And yet they're not passing the word along. So I'm back here now going door to door. Mm-hmm. Now, I've had some wonderful receptions. I've been talking to some of the bigger schools in town, the names everybody knows, and I've talked to their resource officers who's in charge of safety at the schools. And I've only had one school so far say, oh, we don't want this. Every other school has said, I will take it to the principals.
What was their reason?
Well, really, I think this particular resource officer was thinking I was taking his job away from him.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know that.
Yeah.
But then again, I may not have explained it right because I think he got the impression that I was expecting the teachers to get out in the hallways and form a militia and go chase down and he wouldn't give me the time of day. He said, no, not my teachers. I don't want to put that responsibility on them. And he said, go away.
But still, one no and a sea of yeses.
He'll change his mind.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He'll come around.
But the reactions I've been getting, I had one of the major Catholic schools. I got to the COO of the school and he said, well, go see my resource officer. But then he said, but by the way, thank you very much for doing this. And that's and I've had many of them thank me for taking the time to do this.
Absolutely.
So we're going to get them out here around town. But in the meantime, by the time it takes me to get them out around town, how many other schools are being shot up around the country?
Right.
Where they could get on the list, we could start doing training. We've had a lot of interest. There was a police chief at UNO. I just went to show it to him, and he sat me down for 2 hours because he had been involved in the writing the safety manuals for the tasers. Mm. And he sat down and told me how to write a safety manual. Cool. Yeah. Officer Redondo, if you hear this, he's now with the levee board. He's in charge of the levee police right now. But so I've had that same kind of, I've had somebody's asked me to speak in front of the Metropolitan Crime Commission. Mm-hmm. They don't know it yet, but one of their members asked me to come do it. And so we're getting positive advice and positive response from everybody. It's just here in town. Yeah. And so we're hoping somebody will have a leap of faith. I think the other thing too is nobody wants to be the firsts.
Yeah. It's always that way, man.
Well, that's just human nature. Yeah. I laugh because, again, for 40 years, I've been doing industrial maintenance and engineering consulting, and I have a degree in psychology. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't make sense of, where things come from. Right. But having that degree, I still, understand the mentalities of things.
Well, yeah. I mean, you also understand the peace of mind aspect of it, which is a good marketing tool right there. Yeah. Just telling people about the peace of mind part of it.
Well, and that's where people are asking. They want to know, is it locked up so the kids can't shoot each other? And we have a stand that's being built in Pittsburgh, and it's interesting. It locks it with a bar that goes through the trigger guard, mm-hmm. and it's screwed into a cinder block. Okay. So you got 50 pounds there. You can't pick it up and run away with it. Right. It can't screw to the wall, but I didn't want to, they wanted to move it around. It still has too much weight. Mm-hmm. And so we had a guy design that up in Pittsburgh. So we had parts coming from all over for this, and so it just hasn't been me that designed this thing, I just kind of coordinated putting it all together.
Well, I think that what's really going on here is what more people should do is when we see a problem, we should all work to fix it rather than wait for someone to come along and fix it for us. Yeah. And I think what you're doing is really, really cool. And hopefully we can help you get the word out here and push this thing along. I'll link the website and stuff in the bio as well.
Appreciate that. Yeah. One other thing we need to mention, people ask me about the cost and they're not cheap. If you see the way it's built, but we broke it down. And in most schools, it's going to be about $60 a student for a one-time purchase. Okay. So we've gone to a lot of parents and we said, would you put $60 in a pot or maybe put $100 in a pot in case somebody else doesn't or whatever? I have yet to have one parent tell me no. Right. And I've talked to parents at every economic level. I even met a woman the other day. I was buying a new phone and she worked for AT&T. She said, I got 4 kids in schools. I'm a single mom and I work here at AT&T. She says, I wouldn't hesitate to put $60 a kid in.
Yeah, it's nothing to protect your child.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's a one-time purchase because it's, the way it's built, it's not going anywhere.
No, like I said, I had it in my hands. It's a really, really nice built piece of machinery. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so. Well, you have anything else you want to add to this today?
Just people, if you know of a child that's in a school, people are asking for help all the time, but we need people to step up and say, teachers tell your parents, teachers tell your PTAs, teachers tell your principals, tell the principals you're not scared of it. We will have training darts too, so that won't break. Yeah. So they can go out in the field and take as many shots as they wanted a tackling dummy, and so they're not scared of shooting it. There's no kick or anything. It's just like shooting an air. It's like shooting a paintball gun. Mm-hmm. In fact, the tank is off a paintball gun. Mm. So it's just getting the word out, and telling people we're here.
Yeah. So if there's anybody out there, try to share this around, and let's see if we can get these in some classrooms and make it a safe place again.
And we are being monitored by Homeland, So if we have success here, if I can get 20 schools next month, then Homeland's going to say,
take you and start going with it.
We'll start going with it.
Yeah.
So what we're doing is the impact is not just local. It's going to go. And I even have banks that have said they'll finance them for the schools.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's always ways to get them in,
Yeah. I love it when the community actually steps up and helps out the school and stuff. And
not one person's wanted to charge me to help.
Oh, wow.
All the input I've had, all the suggestions, engineering device, everybody said, "Oh, look, we'll show you what to do," and whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that shows you that people are actually concerned and want to actually make this a safer place. They know it's an issue.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I sure have appreciated it too, by the way. So,
well, no, I appreciate you coming in today, brother, and we'll definitely try to help you get this stuff out there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.